Bugsy Siegel. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, one of the most infamous mobsters in American history, met a violent end on June 20th, 1947 in Beverly Hills. Siegel's death occurred just months after the disastrous opening of the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, a project he had heavily invested in and managed for the mob. Despite the hotel eventually turning a profit, Siegel's life was cut short in a brutal shooting that remains unsolved to this day. Siegel was killed by a sniper armed with a .30 caliber carbine who fired 9 shots through the window of his girlfriend Virginia Hill's rented home. The assailant struck Siegel twice in the head and twice in the torso while he was still reading a newspaper, killing him instantly. While there are numerous theories about who ordered the hit, no definitive answer has emerged. Some believe the mob orchestrated the murder due to Siegel's mishandling of funds, while others speculate about the involvement of personal enemies or even Virginia Hill's own brother. 77 years later, the identity of the killer is still a hot debate, and the murder has become the legend of one of organized crime's most notorious figures. Charles C. Morgan. Espionage, organized crime, and bizarre symbolism. This was the story of the bizarre death of Charles C. Morgan in a nutshell. Morgan was a 39-year-old escrow agent from Tucson, Arizona, who went missing twice in 1977, only to be found dead under extremely unusual circumstances. Despite initially being labeled a suicide, the details surrounding the death painted a far more brutal and bizarre picture. Morgan's body was discovered near his car wearing a bulletproof vest and carrying a concealed weapon. Even more strangely, a tooth wrapped in a handkerchief and a $2 bill adorned with cryptic notes and Masonic symbols were found at the scene. What added more to the mystery was the phone calls his wife received just days before his death that cryptically referenced a Bible verse. Theories about his death range from his involvement with organized crime to claims of being a secret agent for the Treasury Department. Morgan has also been accused of money laundering, secret dealings with mafia figures, and involvement in high-stakes gold transactions that further complicates the story. The case even caught the attention of investigative journalist Don Devereaux, who survived a mysterious assassination attempt that could have been connected to his inquiries into Morgan's death. However, the truth behind Charles C. Morgan's death is still hidden behind a group of cryptic clues. Town bully McElroy. On July 10, 1981, the small town of Skidmore, Missouri witnessed the shocking killing of Ken Rex McElroy, a man famously known as the town bully. McElroy's reputation for being a bully and a criminal has been long established since he regularly terrorized Skidmore's residents with harassment, theft, and violence. With his aggressive nature and commanding behavior, he manipulated the legal system easily and escaped conviction from numerous crimes, including arson, assault, and statutory assault. However, his criminal empire began to crumble down when he shot Bo Bowenkamp, a local shop owner, in the neck over a minor confrontation. Though convicted, he was released on bail pending appeal, and Skidmore's residents were left afraid, knowing that no matter what he does, justice will always evade him. But his cruel era of terrorizing residents came to a final end on July 10th when a large crowd gathered outside D&G Tavern where McElroy and his wife Trina were present. As McElroy attempted to leave his truck, shots were fired, ending his life. Despite the presence of many witnesses, no one came forward to identify the shooter. The community maintained a wall of silence. They accepted the death of their longtime tormentor peacefully as a form of justice that they had long craved. Pollock Twins. The story of Pollock Twins began in Hexham, England, where John and Florence Pollock's 2 daughters, Joanna and Jacqueline, tragically died in a car accident in 1957. A year later, Florence became pregnant, and John believed their daughters would return to them in the form of twins. Despite being skeptical, Florence eventually gave birth to twin girls in 1958. What followed was a series of strange events. One of the newborns had a birthmark identical to Jacqueline's, and both twins displayed behaviors and memories that seemed mysteriously connected to their deceased sisters. They recognized their late sister's toys and even described their origins accurately. As they grew, the twins spoke about the fatal car accident, pointing to where they were injured even though they were never told these details. While some argue that these memories could have been passed on by family members, others believe it is evidence of reincarnation. The mystery remains unsolved, leaving people to question if Jennifer and Jillian were truly the reincarnated souls of their lost sisters. Towns of Mutilations. Beginning in the 1970s, Jerome and Bliss were small remote areas that were plagued by horrible incidents involving both humans and cattle. In 1979, two hunters discovered the nude, mutilated body of a man in the wilderness. His intimate organs had been removed, and his body showed other surgical-like cuts, yet there were no tracks or signs of struggle in the area. A decade later, in 1989, two cattle belonging to different ranchers were found mutilated under eerily similar circumstances. The animals had their sexual organs removed, body fluids drained, and patches of hide surgically excised. Despite recent rain, no tracks, human or otherwise, were found near the bodies. Local authorities quickly labeled these incidents as cult killings, but no arrests were ever made, and the precision with which these mutilations were done suggested something way more evil than a simple murder. To this day, people wonder if it was extraterrestrial involvement, secretive human activity, or other unknown forces in these isolated Idaho communities. Landon Jones. Landon Jones was a 12-year-old boy from Iowa who faced a rare medical mystery. He had no sense of hunger or thirst. His parents, Michael and Debbie, spent their days reminding him to eat and drink, repeating, "Take a bite, take a drink," to keep him nourished, yet his condition remained the same. Landon's condition began suddenly in October 2013 when he woke up feeling dizzy and without any urge to eat or drink. Despite countless tests and visits to specialists, including those at Mayo Clinic, no clear diagnosis was ever found. Over time, Landon's weight dropped dramatically from 104 pounds to just 68 pounds. His parents tried everything to help, including setting up donation jars to cover their growing medical bills. Eventually, they had to consider inserting a feeding tube to sustain him. Despite his illness, Landon still loved rock music and tried to participate in normal activities, though his energy was low. Doctors suspected a malfunction in Landon's hypothalamus, the brain region that controls hunger and thirst, but they could not pinpoint the cause. The Jones family remained hopeful, seeking anyone who might have insight into his rare condition. Tragically, the father, Michael Jones, passed away on August 17, 2024, from complications of myelofibrosis at a hospital in Plainsboro, New Jersey, at the age of 80. Voodoo Queen. Mary Laveau, known as Louisiana's Voodoo Queen, is a legendary figure in New Orleans history. Born back in 1801, she spent her entire life in the city where she became famous for her unique blend of Catholic and voodoo practices. Laveau was not just a spiritual leader, but also a healer, helping many people through her knowledge of medicine and spiritual rituals. Her influence was so strong that even local politicians sought her advice. Her grave in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 has become a popular site for visitors, many of whom believe her powers continue beyond the grave. People often mark X on her tomb, hoping their wishes will be granted, a tradition rooted in the belief that her spirit still has the power to help those who seek her. Some even claim to have seen her ghost roaming the cemetery at night. Over a century later, after her death in 1881, Marie Laveau's story continues to fascinate people. She has now become part of New Orleans culture, appearing in books, movies, and local legends. Paulding Light. The Paulding Light is a mysterious phenomenon in Michigan's Upper Peninsula that attracts crowds nightly. This ghostly light, visible from a remote spot off U.S. Highway 45, appears like shimmering orbs that hover in the air, varying in color between white, yellow, and red. The lights flicker and vanish unpredictably and vanish if approached, leaving many to wonder if they're seeing a ghost or something else beyond explanation. Local legends offer several explanations. One popular tale suggests the light is the ghost of a railway brakeman who died in a train accident, appearing with his lantern to warn others. However, there's no record of a railway nearby. Other theories range from supernatural phenomena like will-o-wisps to extraterrestrial signals. Despite scientific investigations led by Michigan Tech University, which found the lights were likely caused by distant car headlights refracted through the atmosphere, the legends are still alive since many visitors prefer to believe that the Paulding Light is a paranormal phenomenon. Lucky 15. On a chilly evening in 1950, the West Side Baptist Church in Beatrice, Nebraska exploded, but none of the 15 choir members were harmed. Why? Because every single one of them was late to the practice that night, which was something that had never happened before. The reasons for their delays were a mix of mundane mishaps, car trouble, a stubborn dress that needed ironing, a tough geometry problem, and even just a lazy desire to stay in a warm house for a bit longer. At 7:25 p.m., 5 minutes after practice was set to start, the church blew up. Had everyone been on time, the outcome could have been tragic. While investigators blamed a gas leak, many couldn't help but see it as a stroke of divine luck, or maybe even a miracle. Coincidence or not, that night, every small delay saved a life. Leatherman of New York. The Leatherman was a mysterious wanderer who traveled a 365-mile route across Westchester, New York, and Fairfield, Connecticut from the 1850s to the 1880s. Wearing a handmade 60-pound leather suit, he lived in caves, slept outdoors, and became a beloved local figure. Though he rarely spoke, he was polite and courteous, often thanking the locals who gave him food and supplies. Thought to be of French origin, possibly Picardy or French Canada, the Leatherman carried a French prayer book and adhered to Catholic practices like abstaining from meat on Fridays. Despite his rough appearance, he was gentle and often greeted warmly by the communities he visited. Some towns even passed ordinances to exempt him from vagrancy laws. In 1888, he was arrested and briefly hospitalized, but found to be sane. He was released and continued his nomadic life until he died in 1889 in a cave near Mount Pleasant, New York, likely from cancer caused by tobacco use. Though his true identity remains unknown, the legend of the Leatherman lives on, with stories suggesting everything from tragic romance to spirits securing his spot in the local folklore.